Welcome to Drama in Session with Carina.
And Heidi.
And here on this podcast, we're going to talk about different cases that are going on. We're going to break down the family law cases that we have going on. And we're just going to give you an inside scoop on the courtroom drama.
So, whether you're navigating family life or you're just fascinated with the team, you're in the right spot. Drama is now in session.
So this week, we got a lot of questions about what are the main things that help or that don't help your case and will essentially guarantee a judge not favoring you for custody. There is a variety of things that a parent can do to lose custody. Most of them are not as obvious, I think, and it takes a lot for a parent to completely lose custody, which I think a lot of people don't realize that it's the court's intent is to make each parent a frequent and continuous part of the children's lives. So when you have a parent that does X, Y, and Z, it's going to make the court really think, well, you know what? Would it be in the best interest of the children to continue being in this parent's life? Or what can we do to make this parent a better parent, such as parenting classes or whatever is the court thinks that would be helpful?
And a lot of times they are a little obvious, but I feel like it needs to be said anyway because it kind of just goes over your head.
Yes. So we have come up with 10, the 10 that we think come up a lot and that people think that it's just going to fly in court, which it really doesn't. So the first one is speaking negatively about the other parent. I understand that you guys were probably in a relationship or may have even been married. Things have come up to obviously cause a full breakdown in your relationship. But when you speak negatively about the other parent, whether it is in court or in legal documents, it kind of leaves a bitter taste in the court's mouth. The court is really thinking, okay, what's going on here? I understand that you're telling me that this person cheated or that the person gave you an STD or that the person ended up getting someone else pregnant, but that's not or in California, that's not what the court is really interested in. The court wants to know how we're going to navigate exchanging the children and what's going to be in the children's best interest. So when it comes to speaking negatively about the parent, there's obviously a difference between telling the court that they're a deadbeat person and or telling the court that they have a serious drinking problem or that they do not actually spend quality time with the children, or that they cause the children to be late to school. That's not speaking negatively about the other parent. That's bringing the facts forward.
Mhm.
But people don't see the difference when they're in family law.
Right. And again, the court wants to make it about the child, not about
Yes.
mom and dad.
Yes, which is hard because you're in the middle of a probably a fresh breakup, and now you have to try to figure out how to exchange your kids with this person.
Have you seen that TikTok where it's like, "Why are you still talking to my ex?" And then it's like the kid, like, "That's my dad."
Yes, and I honestly, that's exactly the way that I think family law drama is, essentially. It's that the kid is sitting there, like, looking at both parents like, "Who are you? And
Mhm.
why all of a sudden do you hate my mom or hate my dad or not like my stepmom or not like my stepdad?" I think it just makes it very difficult on the child to continue being a child.
Yeah.
So, I think when it comes to parenting and trying to be a good co-parent, I think that if you don't have anything nice to say about the other person, then maybe you shouldn't just say anything at all, right? Isn't that the saying or something like that?
I think it was Thumper from Bambi.
Maybe.
The second one, not following court orders or parenting plans.
Yes, this is a big one. If you don't follow the court order or a parenting plan that's already been decided by the court or even agreed to by the parties, right? You don't have to actually
That you
have
signed.
Yeah, you don't have to actually have a judge stamp and say like, "Oh, this is the order."
Mhm.
It's something that you both agreed upon and say next week you change your mind. Like there's no take backsies in custody cases. The court orders are the court orders and the court expects you to be an adult and be able to come up with a parenting plan and be able to stick to it. The one thing that courts do not like is changing things for the children
Mm.
because the children are already undergoing so much change with a custody battle. It may be very new to them to have to go to moms or have to go to dads or exchanges, but the court wants to make it as continuous and stable for the children as possible. So when there is a custody agreement, parenting plan, or even a court order, whether you like it or not, it's important to stick to it.
Mhm. Especially because not only we've had cases where now mom or dad are actually moving to be closer to the other parent, not because they want to rebuild anything, but because the mom or dad are trying to make it easier on the child. Right now, we're about to hit the summer. Some children are entering middle school or high school, or well, high school, I guess not, but middle school.
Mhm.
And it's a new school that they have to deal with now if they're moving.
Yes.
And a lot of parents sometimes try and move closer to one another so that they can have a halfway point where it's not as difficult to wake up the child at. We've had people wake up their kids at what, 5 a.m.
Yeah.
because they have to travel so far to take them to school. And it only I work it harder on the child.
Yes, and that's what the court looks at. I know that I have people ask us all the time, "Can I move? Can I move out of the county? Can I move to San Bernardino County? Can I move to Orange County? Can I move out of the state?" And the short answer to that is not without the other party's consent
Mhm.
or not without being able to prove to the court that this move was in the child's best interest.
Mhm.
Because if you're moving further away from the other parent, then that causes the court to think that you're not really doing things for the child. It's more about you. And yes, you can sit and tell the court, well, this was closer to my job, closer to my family, easier for me as far as like paying rent. And now that our economic situation has changed, but at the same time, the court, even though they may be sympathetic to your new situation, the court is going to say, well, it was not in your child's best interest to move
Right.
2 hours away because obviously, we still have to have exchanges. Mom or dad still need to see this child.
Mhm.
What's going to happen at that point?
Mhm. Exactly.
So the next one we have is to, I mean, that goes hand in hand with what we talked about, is to failing to prioritize the children's best interests. And that happens a lot. And I don't think that people realize when they're doing it,
Mm.
right? They're trying to come up with orders and parenting plans that are in their best interest and not in the kid's best interest. I want to move. I want to be closer to my family. I want to be closer to my job. But where I live now is closer to my child's mom or closer to my child's dad.
Mhm.
Why would you put your interests before the child? That's what the court is going to look at.
Mhm.
And every move that you make once you're in family law court is going to be scrutinized by a judge. They're going to see, okay, well, what was the reason that this person did it? And was it in the child's best
Mhm.
interest? Or was this person just thinking, I know that we're supposed to do exchanges, but let's see him or her try to drop off and pick up when I'm an hour away.
Mhm. Well, you know what came to mind whenever recent cases where dad mentioned that the cops came and the child was sleeping.
Oh,
I
yes.
should tell them that one.
So there was a recent case where they were they had just come up with a parenting plan, I think, and
Mhm.
mom was trying to claim that they had switched weekends or something, and dad was saying no, it's on the talking parents. We didn't. We decided not to, or we switched a different day, and mom was adamant about this being her day, and she said, well, if you don't give me the child, I'm going to call the cops. And dad was like, okay, call the cops, not thinking she really would.
Mhm.
So dad says he was in the shower, and when he got out of the shower, their cops are knocking on the door. He opens the door, and the child's asleep at this point, and the cops say, we got a call that we need to do a welfare check on this child. And dad's like, well, I'm not going to let you go in there and barge in. It's like,
Mhm.
that is going to traumatize my child. And
Mhm.
honestly, as a parent and mom in this situation, does she not think about that and not think
Mhm.
about what it would be like to go into a child's bedroom at 11 o'clock at night and see cops there? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So,
But dad did such a good job the way he handled it.
yes, he really did. Dad actually told the cops, look, our son got a haircut today. So I'm going to tell him that you're my friends, that we have been hanging out, and that I wanted to show them your haircut. My heart. I know, and it worked, and the child didn't know the difference, but in that situation, the court would have looked at it like, "Lady, why did you involve the cops?"
Right.
I mean, if you really truly believed that it was your day, it's enough to have documented it. Why did you have to get the cops involved? And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are situations where you definitely need to get the cops
Mhm.
involved because it's something that continues to happen, and we have parents that refuse to follow court orders. We have one, where the cops finally got tired of going to dad's house to enforce a court order, that the DA actually picked up a case, and they were able to file charges against dad for continuously violating a court order. And honestly, I don't remember the last time I've seen something like that be done, but I think because he was very hostile towards the cops, and it was the same cops that were going there all the time,
Mhm.
I think they just had enough.
I think I've been to court enough where, I used to work at a domestic violence shelter, actually, I don't think I've ever mentioned that, or maybe I have, but I would take the moms to court, and there was this one specific case where I'd actually kidnapped the child. He just never brought him back to the exchange, and, there were orders, so he broke that order. But we were in court so much that even the security, when you enter the courthouse and everything, were like, "Are you here on the so and so case?" And I'm like, "Yep." Like, they already knew. And then it was like our 5th or whatever hearing. They're like, "You're still," and then sometimes, I think one of the last orders, the guy actually, he went to jail. So then he was like, "Oh, what do you know about so and so?" And we're like, "He's still." Everybody was so invested in the case.
And I think sometimes that happens. I think that I'll be in court sometimes listening to other cases, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I wanna know what happened." I'm, like, seriously so invested. But I think that that's part of the family courtroom drama. I mean, if you ever get an opportunity to go and sit at a hearing in family law, I would recommend to do it because it it really opens up your eyes as to what happens, and sometimes you walk out of there like, "Wow, this is real life.
Yeah.
This is what people are really going through," or,
Mm.
"This is what people really come to court to bring up." It's just
Yeah.
wild to me.
Imagine the judges.
I know. I think that that's a difficult job for them to have, and that's why most of the time they already have so much on their plate that by the time they get to clients, it's or cases, they just want to make orders and get them out of there. They don't really try to figure out, well, what's mom doing? What's dad doing? What's going on here? I think that that gets a little difficult because now you're relying on somebody to make a court order for you
Mhm.
that probably isn't as invested in your life and your children as you are.
Mhm.
So I think that's actually one of the other ones that we've been able to talk or we should talk about is the fact that people always say, well, let's leave it up to the judge. I'll see you in court and let's let the judge decide. I don't know how many times that shows up on text message
Yes.
threads like, well, we're going to let the judge know and they're going to make orders and you're going to regret it. It's like, okay, it's more than likely that when a judge is going to make orders, both of you guys are going to regret it because you now have a third party that doesn't really know much about you and your relationship, the other parent, your child, making court orders.
Mhm.
What does that mean? That means that you're going to get orders that have you driving in traffic for exchanges as opposed to you guys being able to come up with a schedule that would work for you. Most judges want to make sure that a child is in bed at a proper time, but that means exchanges are during traffic.
Mm.
So if you and the other parent could come up with a resolution of, hey, you know what? Exchanges can be at 8 because we'll exchange, the child will be showered or whatever. The people don't think that way.
Mhm.
Then you have these judges that make crazy, crazy, orders, and you're sitting there like, "Wait a minute, that's not what I came to court for."
Or they didn't hear me out, which I actually am thinking about it. You know how we have requests for orders?
Yes.
Sometimes I do see that when the opposing party submits a request for order, they don't attach a declaration. I think they just think that they're filling out the forms and they think that at the hearing they're voicing out what they're saying. But like we're saying now,
Yes.
that's not your time to share was in your declaration.
Yes, and that's another key factor that we're gonna touch on is the fact that you need to be prepared
Mhm.
for court, whether that's going to court with a lawyer or being prepared to actually be able to advocate for yourself.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is being able to really lay the foundation of what you're asking for and how that's in your child's best interest in a declaration.
Mhm.
Because you're probably going to get maybe 10 minutes with a judge to tell the judge everything that you need to tell the judge without sounding crazy.
Mhm.
It's not easy to do. Right?
Right.
It's impossible. And most people get so nervous. And I mean,
Your emotions take over, you start
how
crying.
many times do we have people call us and ask us, do I have to talk? I don't know. If the judge asks you a question, please talk. Those that they're mute. People ask me that all the time. Just like, I have no idea. Maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out in the moment.
Mhm.
But I think that realistically, you don't really understand the way that court works. So maybe if you are trying to navigate through a family law case on your own without an attorney, or even if you do have an attorney, go to court and go sit and watch your judge.
Mhm.
Figure out what's important to them. Ask your attorney what's important to them, because not going to court prepared will be one of the biggest factors to you not being able to walk out of
Mhm.
there with custody or minimal custody.
And that leads us actually to our next one. Another mistake is not documenting communication and incidents. So, again, not showing up with the text, the emails, the days that you did have visitation when the other person is saying that you never have seen your kid in the last 6 months or you never sent money, but then you show up and it's like, no, I did. And for example, okay, where the do you have like your Zelle payments logs? Oh yeah, on my phone. No, I need it. I You don't know
Exactly.
how many times we sit there and the judge was like, "Nope, your time to show me that was
Yeah. Or you
what
needed
you
to
filed."
exchange it before the hearing
Mhm,
and you didn't do so. So if the other party is making accusations, you need to come to court prepared to show the court that they're false.
mhm.
It's not enough to tell the court that's not true.
It's
Well,
hearsay at that point.
yeah, well, why isn't it true?
Mhm,
So you're not late to every exchange? No, and it could be as easy as printing out messages from your court appointed app, or printing out the text messages that you have, or having a text message ready to go on your iPad or your phone or whatever the case may be, but not something where you have to actually go through, because you don't know if you're going to be given that opportunity.
mhm.
Sometimes you are. Sometimes the judge says, okay, can you look for that and let me know if you find it.
But sometimes they're like, "No, I don't wanna see it now," and it's like,
Exactly.
"Mm,
And then the other thing is you need to have timestamps. Like,
mm,
how many times do we have text messages and it doesn't have like a date or a time or anything? Like, I don't know if these text messages are from 2019.
right."
How am I supposed to know?
Or when we do have the messages from that day, sometimes our clients will just send us screenshot, and email it. But then once the email comes in, it's all out of place, and we're playing over here a puzzle piece, trying to put it together. And I'm like, dude, send it to me again with on the right order.
Yes, and it's really important to log everything for court. Make sure that you log the visits, missed visits, anytime the child is late, and not just because the court expects you to detail everything, or we want everybody in a custody case to have like OCD and make sure they're documenting everything. But what I've found is that when people document, they can go back and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that they're late every Wednesday. Like, in particular, Wednesdays, they're late, or even every third Wednesday of the month, they're late. So, what's happening on that third Wednesday? Is this person working when they said that they weren't working? Because you also don't want to question your child,
Mhm.
right? So, that's where you, as a parent, you can look up patterns and you can show patterns to the judge. That is key. Being able to show the judge, look, this key continues to happen, or this is what's going on, or this is how they respond. Those are really big in court, whether you're trying to disprove something that the other party is saying, or you're trying to prove something that you're trying to stress to the court that's happening.
Mhm.
For example, late drop offs is huge. I just had a case recently last week where the opposing counsel was like, the child has been late 36 times on your client's time. And I'm like, 36 times? I'm calling my client, like, okay, lady, what's going on? And she's like, no. So I asked the other side, can you send me the document that shows that? And then sure enough, there was 36 tardies. But they were, I guess the child has periods, right? Because they're in middle school. So it's like the child was late to fifth period.
After lunch or something.
Okay, yes, it was on a Wednesday, my client's day, but, like, how does my client have any control over whether or not the child is late?
Right.
So I thought it was interesting because this attorney was making these statements without fully looking at what was happening. And then I was able to point out, like, look, the ones that really matter are the Mondays that your client is supposed to drop off the child, that he's late. And he's actually been late every Monday that he's dropped off the child, which was interesting because I was able to use their evidence
Mic drop.
against them, which I thought was a good one.
Yes.
So the next one that we have is
Number 5.
number 5 would be to refusing to co-parent and or communicating in general. We have a lot of people that won't text back, won't communicate, won't discuss anything with the other parent. It's like they walk
Talk
out.
to my lawyer.
Yeah, it's like they walk out of court and it's like that's the orders and that's it.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, no, life
Mhm.
happens, and that doesn't mean that doing just that is in the child's best interest. It's in the child's best interest to communicate with the other parent.
Right.
I think I had, or we recently had a case where they were trying to exchange uniforms and they were always getting lost. But mom refused to co-parent and communicate about the uniforms. And I think dad said, I finally just went and bought a second pair of uniforms. But what was truly frustrating is the fact that mom was not willing to communicate about the uniforms. And that's what the court stuck with, and that's what the court ran with. And in the court's eyes, they're looking at it like if you can't put your pride aside and communicate with this person about your child, then it's not in the child's best interest to be with somebody that's going to be or that, it's is not going to be able to put the child first.
Mhm. Or people who don't use or need to use talking parents, and then they still choose to use the personal phone to call and text. It's like, please use talking parent.
Or any court-appointed app. I think
Mhm.
there's several, like Our Family Wizard, or there's new ones coming out as we speak, but I think that that goes back to following court orders.
Exactly.
If there's a court order for you to use a court-appointed app, you need to use the court-appointed app.
Mhm.
I've told people, when they call and they're like, they're texting me on the side, and I'm like, "Okay, well, screenshot that message and then put it on Talking Parents because now you're documenting
Mhm.
the fact that they are violating a court order. You're literally documenting the fact that they text you outside of this app, and you all you have to say is, "In response to this question, blah, 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 and please don't text me outside of the app." Even though it's great that they're communicating, right? It could be worse. You could have somebody that refuses to communicate.
Right.
And I think that that's one thing that the court will not tolerate when the other party is non-responsive. There's court orders that the court will put in place where it says that you need to respond within 12 hours, within 24 hours to a text message. And if you don't, you're violating a court order.
Mhm.
That's how important a judge feels that parents need to talk.
Yeah.
Parents need to communicate.
And then the other one is bringing a new partner into your child's life, specifically a toxic partner.
Yes.
Because you are free to get a new partner
Yeah.
and date, I guess, whoever you want to date. But we have cases where now the new partner is abusive toward the shared child
Or the parent.
or the parent. And then the child is now communicating that to, their other parent. And now we have a case where our client got actually full custody because of that abusive
Situation.
pressure.
I have actually had it several times where I was able to get specifically in both or the all three cases that I've had dad full custody because of the toxic relationship that mom was choosing to be in.
Or dad.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's, well, is it this relationship or your child?
Mhm.
And it's one thing to introduce your child to a new partner. It's another thing to bring in a partner that is not going to be healthy to be in your child's life
Right.
or not what would be expected to be in your child's life. Now, the court will want to see what's going on in that child's day to day life. And if there is allegations of abuse, the court is going to dive in. And like I said in the beginning, anytime that you're involved in a custody battle, your entire day to day life is under a microscope. Everything is fair game. You think that you're going to be able to not or something is not gonna come up, like a DUI that you got when the child is not in your custody with your other partner, like, no, that is fair game. That's probably something that's gonna come up and will trigger orders that say that you're not allowed to drink when you have the child in custody. Even though you didn't have the child in custody, your actions prove to the court that you are not thinking clearly even when you don't have the child. And the same thing goes for the relationships.
Right.
So it gets hard when you want to date, but you just need to make sure that you're dating the right person.
Right.
And some people love those toxic relationships. Yeah, I think that when you love those toxic relationships, you're always going to be looking for those toxic people to match your relationships. I think in one case that we had, the other partner that we were claiming was toxic, their baby mama was calling our office, telling us that they were going to file against this stepdad or whatever. And we're like, wow, this guy got us on his trail, with
Yeah,
him.
well, you got the other partner or the new ex-partner coming to us to like help me
Yes,
relate cases.
it gets crazy. It really does.
That's so true.
So the next thing is kind of on the similar topic. It would be substance abuse or alcohol abuse. I think that these are really big topics with the court because now I think that times are changing and people aren't drinking as much. And I think that we can see that socially, alcohol is not the way that it used to be before. But there are parents that still take alcohol or substance abuse, well, regardless of what it is, to a different level. And that's where the court will always get involved. Anytime that your other parent makes an allegation of you being an alcoholic, you're going to get an order that there's going to be no drinking when you have a child. But the thing is what people don't realize is that that order is going to go both ways. So you think you're going to say, well, I don't want them drinking with the child. Well, then that means that you can't drink with the child either. So your wine night with the girls when the kids go to sleep, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. Or, I mean, you don't post it because that's another thing is people love to post everything they do. I had a case once, and I actually haven't thought about this case in years, but it literally just stuck with me about how reckless people can be. This guy came to court saying that he wanted custody. And my client was like, yes, of course, as long as you're going to be healthy and stable with the kids. They had 3 kids. He was dating a new partner. She had 2 kids. Well, my client kept saying, well, he picks them up in this car and they all get in. So my client's 3 kids, dad and new partner and her 2 kids. So it's like, okay, you're saying that 7 people get into this like small 4-door Honda? And she's like, yes. So we get to court and she actually shows me a video that he recently posted. And this guy's supposed to be sober and there's an order for him not to drink. And it shows him driving in the car, taking a selfie video. He posted it on Snapchat. It shows his significant other driving, all the kids lapping it in the back.
I remember that.
And then he cheers the camera with his drink as the vehicle is moving. I'm like, wow, slam dunk case. Yeah, court orders made, not in that guy's favor. But obviously, how can you think that we're not going to use that? And he was saying, well, I didn't give them consent to use that. And the judge looked at it like, you put it online. Yeah, but I'm private. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't know. Your cousin gave it to them. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It came to us and we were able to use it, and that's all that mattered.
And that's definitely something new nowadays with social media. Why is that such a tongue twister to say in this podcast?
Social media.
Social media. It's just it's new.
Yeah.
And it's so popular. Everybody posts everything.
Yes, but
So
everything is fair game.
yeah.
People think like, well, they're stalking me because they're watching what I'm doing. Yes, absolutely. And so is the judge because now, like, your entire life,
We're all watching now.
so your entire life is on display.
Is it now?
How many times do we get a new client and we start looking at their significant other to see what they're posting, to see what they're doing? Because most of the time we get that. We have somebody saying that every time she has a child, she claims that she wants to be with the child and the child's a baby, but she's going out every weekend.
Like, or she's talking bad about me. She posted it again, or she's posting. I'm saying that like I cheated and ruined the relationship, and there it goes on all your friends' kids' parents. That's
Yes.
still watching.
The chat. or posted on the chat. We had somebody that posted literally all of the tea on the group chat for there's some little league team. Like, oh yeah, well they're not going to be here anymore because they cheated and they're not going to go to the Dodger event anymore. We're like, wow.
And it wasn't even true.
It is just crazy what gets posted on there. Or remember, we had this one guy who ended up walking out of court with one overnight. One overnight. And after court, he posted all over social media how he beat, and it's specifically me in court, how he won this lawyer in court and how he was thanking, I don't know, everyone. Literally, he thanked everyone, like his family, friends, Beyonce at that point. He was, like, thanking everyone for supporting him because he beat me, and my client was like, "What should we do?" And I'm like, "Nothing, like, let him think he won, he has one overnight."
One overnight is a win for you.
Then, "Okay, sir, I'm glad you won." So the other thing that comes up a lot is being dishonest to the court. So it's one thing to obviously like not really know the extent of the other person's drinking, right? But bring forth the fact that you believe that they have a drinking problem. But if you're going to be completely dishonest
Mm.
to the court and say that they are being late every drop off, right? And then we're able to prove that they're not, the court is going to think that you're no longer a credible person. Now, when you have something credible to say, the court's going to say, should we believe this?
Right.
Not believe them?
No.
What's real and what's not. So honesty is key in key.
Yes. And the judge will tell you straight up,
Oh, yes.
don't find you credible.
No, no, they will. They'll say like, well, you lied to me once. I don't know whether you're telling me the truth. And it gets hard when you have a client that now really does have something to say.
Right.
And, another thing that people always want to bring up, like, oh, well, they have narcissistic personality. Okay, well,
What does that mean?
yeah, well, what does that mean? Were they diagnosed? Like, well, I've read all the articles and saw the YouTube videos.
The self-diagnosing.
And it's like, okay, well, since when do you have a PhD? And last time I checked, even if you did have a PhD, isn't it against doctor-patient privilege for you to disclose any of that? Anyways, I always have lots of questions when people say that.
Can you confirm if I have ADHD?
I know, serious. Can we diagnose me now because I have a lot going on? So when people want to throw all these crazy stuff, obviously as attorneys we know to stop them. But when they don't have an attorney in court, they want to throw out all these allegations about the other parent, and the court is just going to say, "Well, you know what? You're throwing a lot to me." Instead of saying that they are a narcissistic person, you can say they're manipulative in the form that they treat our children or in what they say to our children. There's ways to prove that they have these traits, but just saying the word, no, that's not gonna get you anywhere.
And that goes hand in hand with the other one, again, failing to prepare legally.
Yeah, and I think and I think we already hit on that as far as, like, making sure you're prepared at your hearing, make sure that you file everything because you only probably have 10 minutes, if that, maybe 2 minutes if the court wants to go to lunch.
Taking documents with you to court. We've had cases where they're like, oh, yeah, I have that all at home. And the judge is like, okay, well, your hearing is right now. What do you mean you left it at home?
Like, how? But, yeah, that's the way people are.
Over prepare. Oh, and never in doubt.
Definitely. But then I also think, like, the people that come in with all of those binders,
Oh, then they're rattled looking through
yeah,
everything.
you really take those people seriously? Like, I remember one person came in and they had, like, carts of stuff, and they were, like, lugging both of them in, and they put it on the desk, and I'm like, what is all of that?" "Well, the
Are they
evidence."
going to trial?
Yeah, I'm like, they rattling, like, "Oh my god, did I not realize that this was a trial?" And then they're like, "This is all my evidence against your client." And I'm like, "Wow." And I looked at my client like, "What is that? Do you know what this is, box?" And then they're like, "No." That hearing, nothing. They were able to pull out nothing from all those boxes. I don't know how long it took them to prepare for this 5-minute hearing, but the judge was like, no. I think the judge took one look at those documents and was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to ask them for anything because they're going to have to dig through all of that. Everything had like tabs. They laid out their colored highlighters. I was like, oh my God, wow.
That's funny.
It was wild. So the last one is over involving the children in a case. This is huge. If the court ever finds out that you have spoken to your child about the case, that is that is a no-no in the court world. That will probably guarantee you not having very much custody, if any at all, because the court wants to shield the children from these adult topics, these adult things going on in the courtroom. So when you get a child that's telling the other parent, "Oh yeah, my mom said that I'm not going to see you tomorrow anymore because on Wednesday you guys go to court and we're not going to be able to come over anymore." Like, what? First of all, kids don't know things like that. And second of all, that was very specific
Mhm.
for a child to say that mom said on Wednesday, right? There's court and we're not going to see you anymore. And mom is trying to file for full custody.
And then if mom doesn't end up getting the full custody, you're basically like traumatizing your child. You're never going to see them again. And then they do see them again. And then the child is like, wait, what? Like you said I wasn't.
And always wondering if it's going to be the last time to see the other parent. It's unnecessary. And you have to remember that in a child's eyes, their parent is still their parent.
Mhm.
How many kids continue loving a toxic parent or an abusive parent? They don't understand. They're trying to navigate their own feelings. And at some point, I tell everyone, kids will understand who their parents are. They're going to see it for themselves.
Right.
You don't need to tell them.
Mhm.
But when you do tell them in the court's eyes, that'll mean that you're not being a good co-parent, that you're not doing what's in your child's best interest, that you're not doing anything to protect your child, to shield them from this, especially the fact that their life completely changed after you both broke up. So now this kid knows that dad cheated on you or that mom gave you an STD or that there's court on Wednesday. Like, the court is going to say absolutely not. Ask your child what they're doing in geometry.
They're probably filming a podcast in geometry of us spilling all their parents' seeds.
Seriously, oh my God, imagine what they say at school though too, right? I'm sure they all talk to each other.
Yeah.
So now not only do your kids know, your kids' best friends know, and then their parents know because they're gonna say, "Well, Jimmy said that their mom and dad were gonna go to court on Wednesday and that he wasn't gonna see their dad anymore." And that mom is going like, "What? What did Jimmy's dad do?"
Having a nice family dinner with all the tea.
Right? I'd be like, "Well, no, on Wednesday you need to get me the deets, or on Thursday you need to let me know what happened."
Did Jimmy go back to school?
Yes, exactly. So obviously, all of this is funny until it's not, until it's your case and you're in it. And these are just examples that we believe that happen literally on the daily. And we want to make sure that people avoid doing these things because it may just be a remark that you tell your child, like, "Oh, well, your mom can't get it together enough to go to one of your practices." Well, why does your child need to know that?
Mhm.
And it may be that you were just venting, but you don't vent to your child. You just really don't because that's never gonna get you anywhere.
Yeah. On that note, what would you say is the weirdest court order you've encountered?
I think when it comes to court orders, it's always up in the air what a judge will order,
Mhm.
right? I tell everyone we should probably try to communicate with the other parent and come up with a schedule or a parenting plan that works for both of you instead of letting the judge decide
Mhm.
because this judge is going to get 10 minutes with us at most, right? Maybe 3, and he has to decide what's going to go on with your children and your children's life. And like I said earlier, making orders that are in the middle of traffic. So now your child is spending 45 minutes in a car as opposed to 5 minutes.
Mhm.
A recent order that I just had was a judge. Mom was saying that the daughter was talking to too many boys and that she was concerned and that dad was just, letting it go on. And, but nowadays, it's not necessarily that they talk to boys, it's that there's all these group chats that these kids
Mhm.
have and they have group chats about homework, they have group chats about like classroom and it's what they do. It's part of this generation. But there was an order that the court made that this child could not have a boyfriend.
Oh.
So we're talking about a 12-year-old little girl. She ended up not even being there in court, right? Getting home from school and finding out that a judge, someone she doesn't know, said that she could not have a boyfriend. I don't know about you, but as a 12-year-old, that's 7th grade. I feel like I don't know if I was like into having boyfriends at the time, but if somebody said I couldn't have a boyfriend,
Now I have 10 boyfriends.
oh, I would have a new boyfriend every day of the week. But then how does like, I left thinking, how is that order even gonna work? What if the child turns 13 and now, in junior high, you used to have dances and things like you're not allowed to have a boyfriend. And what if you do have a boyfriend and you're not gonna tell your parents about your new relationship because of this court order? We want nothing more than our kids to tell us everything. So that order made me feel so sad for this child and these parents because that's going to hinder their relationship with their child. And as a little girl, she's probably thinking like, "Wait, first of all, I don't have a boyfriend, but what does that have anything to do with what happened?"
Yeah.
So that was a wild one. The o the other wild ones just happen randomly, right? Like, some parents will go in and claim that certain things are happening during exchanges. There was this one case that dad was showing up to exchanges bumping music, and he was literally bumping, like, Gold Digger.
That's so cute.
Yeah, and, like, music about cheating, and which was obviously directed
Not
towards
the Carrie Underwood.
it was directed towards mom, and mom brought it up to the court, and the court said, "Well, how do you know that this is towards you?" And she's like, "Well, hello." Well, without pretty much telling the court that she cheated or not cheated. She's like, "He believes I cheated. He's bumping this music, and now the children, when I'm driving home, they're still singing it." And she's like, "It's obviously towards me." And when she asked dad, like, "Dad, what do you have to say about this?" And he was like, the kids like music, we bump it." And then the judge was like, "Okay." And the mom was like, "Well, it's stressful, it puts stress on the kids." And maybe the kids knew, maybe they didn't. But the judge, I mean, to err on the side of caution, the judge was like, "Okay, we're gonna have a silent order, like literally a silent order during exchanges, no radios, nothing. Nobody's gonna say anything. The children are just gonna get exchanged."
Yeah, and I mean, it's only, what, a minute or 3 until you get on the freeway?
Yes, I know. And we all know what dad was doing.
Oh, for
But
sure.
for the court, I feel like the court was sitting there like, "Oh, what?" Like, no, really. And then the fact that she's like, "And then the kids are singing it." And I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, no. It's interesting the stuff that people do and how petty people will get when it comes to custody. I think that again, you don't realize that you're being petty, or maybe you do, but people in that moment, it's like they become different people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe that guy when they dated, he used to bump these romantic music or songs for her, but now in his mind, Gold Digger and these cheating songs are the way to go.
Wish.
Or what's that movie back in the day? It was like Waiting to Exhale, and there was like all this music behind it, and the whole theme of it was like her burning down or her burning all of his clothes in a car. So imagine like the kids are all like watching music videos, and it's that, and it's like referencing mom.
Oh my gosh, now it's like we're having movie nights too.
Seriously, this is the movies that they're watching. So I think that when it comes to family law, some parents really win an Oscar award. They really do, with their pettiness and with their drama and sometimes just the stuff that they do. I mean, we have some. Well, another crazy order that I got was that a mom was not allowed to breastfeed her child. And you would think like, well, what do you mean the court is getting involved in something like that? Well, yeah, because the child was 6.
Oh.
Like 6 years old, yes, and the mom didn't have milk anymore, and so it was like they would just latch on for comfort,
Oh, okay.
and but the dad was like, "But when the child comes to me," he's, like, trying to be like, "Oh, can I have, your breasts?" And the dad's like, no," and then first of all, this kid's tall and big, and so he's just standing there, so the judge was like, "Okay, yeah, no more no, none of that. That's an order, none of that."
No more latching.
Yeah, no more latching, no more breastfeeding without breast milk. So that was an interesting one because according to mom, that's what they did. And it may have been something that they used to bond, but in the court's eyes, now that it was brought forward, that's not something that was going to fly.
Or maybe it was something, I don't know, cultural that her family did growing up.
I don't know. But this child was 6, full of teeth. He's like all coming home from first grade at 3 p.m. Like, okay, mom.
Mom showing up to school for a snack time.
To breastfeed the child. Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting order, and if we say that out loud, right, like, your initial face was like, "What do you mean, like, a court made an order for no breastfeeding?" Well, yeah, I mean, the child was older, and it was clear that the mom was not doing this for the right reasons, and I think initially, I truly did believe that mom was doing it because her whole thing was like, "Well, the child breastfeeds," right, all throughout the years that we were in court, but then it was like, "Okay, you're still breastfeeding the child at 6? That's odd behavior."
But no breast milk.
But no breast milk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, no, and maybe she was doing that to be petty, and then it got out of hand. Not sure.
What is that? Munchausen syndrome? Or
I don't know. There's always some kind of syndrome that everyone's getting diagnosed with, so maybe. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's session of Drama in Session, where we will bring the courtroom drama straight to you. And obviously, this is in no way legal advice. We just have fun with our cases, and we want to make sure that you do not make the same mistakes that we have seen countless of people make. So, next week, we're hoping to talk to you guys a little bit more about some child support do's and don'ts and more drama.
always drama.
Thanks, guys, for watching.